What's up, freaks? This is just me, and today we're taking a look at the best quads in the front poses. So to determine these, we're gonna be using the front lat spread pose mainly because in this pose most bodybuilders stand straight and don't bend to the side. But also we're gonna be using the front double biceps and the most muscular. And no, we're not gonna be using the ab and thigh. That's gonna have its own video because usually in the ab and thigh one leg is in the front and it's flexed. So it's not fair to compare it to the quads in, for example, the front lat spread, in my reckoning. Okay, and we're gonna go in increasing order in this video. So if you wanna see the best ever in the quad region, you're gonna have to wait for them to the end of this video. But this list is never gonna be objective and completely quote-unquote correct. I'm not saying that or claiming that. Alright, so let's start because this is the quads from the front. So needless to say, it's gonna be a long one. And we have Pablo Bautista starting us off. He comes from the 2000s and he's not very famous, but he has pretty impressive quads. Not the biggest, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna say they're the biggest. And I also gotta admit, Paco has a very odd shape, although his quads are nicely strided. Not the most developed, but I still think these quads need to be appreciated at least a bit. We move on though, Eric Feinhauser, also the 2000s, and a bit more size on the quads. Still not that impressive because Eric's humongous calves dominate his quads, but the upper wheels, in my opinion, look pretty good. Also strangely shaped, but very nice teardrops and decent sweeps as well, I think. This is Craig Titus from the 2000s as well. He's got a nice set of quadriceps muscles down at the knee. The teardrops look vascular and the sweeps are big and round. Really impressive in my opinion. This is a 90s mass monster, natural somebody. He had pretty good quads, very balanced it seems, very beefy medial head, but decent teardrops too, and a nice size of course overall. The wheels matches upper body, which is no easy feat. So Nasser needs a mention. Next though, we go into the 80s for the Dragon Slayer, Rich Kaspari with great development in the quad region too. His quads are very complete, top to bottom, conditioned and well shaped. I think he's got better genetics in the quads than anywhere else on his body, to be honest. So Rich is good, especially for the 80s. And here's another shorter guy. This is Lee Priest from the 90s. He's known for the arms, but his limbs overall were really good. Also a complete and balanced set of quads. They flow well with the rest of his physique. And look at that impressive size and cuts. Nice quads. This is Cedric Macmillan, who of course is a current competitor with pretty impressive quad development, if you ask me. They look very conditioned and just as classic as the rest of Cedric. Nice lines too. He could use some size, to be honest, but it looks awesome as it is. Another competitor from the current ranks, Steve Kuklo. He's got also not the greatest size, but it's enough. Decent cuts and completeness, he can definitely be very competitive. Next is Eddie Robinson. You might not have heard of this lesser known 90s guy, but he has pretty good quads. Less cut than some of the guys we have already seen, but bigger and vascular, and all three heads look very good. Nothing lagging behind. So take note of Eddie Robinson. Alright, this is Alexander Fedorov, kind of a one-hit wonder, with virtually all his photos coming from only one show in the 2000s, and I have no idea what's up with his back. Is it torn or something? It looks torn to me. It's like it's detached. Anyway, look at the quads. They look great. Very long, very meaty, and once again, all three heads are in balance. So we got Alex on this list too. Now jump to the 2010s and today's era to witness Joshua Lenordowicz with his quad development. So great size with amazing shape and muscle bellies in the quads, not lacking anything. All three heads developed and very separated. Josh is really impressive. But Raphael Brando has something to say about that. He's a current competitor as well, and he has greatly separated quads. They look awesome and very aesthetic too. So round thanks to the other head, but the middle head and the teardrop looks just as great in my opinion. Raphael doesn't have the largest quads ever, but they look very good. And he's very young, so he's got time to progress and have even bigger and better quads. Now we go to the 90s for Milo Starcevic. I don't know how it would be pronounced properly. Probably something like Milo Starcevic. I don't know, but that's not important. I mean, we're looking at his thighs here, right? And I gotta say, he looks very aesthetic too. All three heads look amazing, especially I like the medial head, but even the teardrop, and he's got nice round sweeps, so he's not missing anything. And the quads flow extremely well. But go a bit back to the 80s, I believe this guy's a forgotten bodybuilder. He is called Luis Freitas. I'm probably saying it completely wrong, so I apologize. But Luis's quads are impressing me very much, especially the sweeps are very, very round and very big. But he's got full development, not just the sweeps, but the other two heads too. I gotta say, for this era, Luis Freitas was almost ahead of his time. He has a good lower body, including the quads, of course. This is at Kowai, I guess, Eduardo Kowai. He competed primarily in the 80s as well, and he had a good set. I'm here to tell you, I think this is an interesting shape, kind of a very rigid and square shape down above the knee. The sweeps aren't round, the edges are more sharp, but I mean, not that there's anything wrong necessarily with that. A lot of other guys have this shape to their quads as well. I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, Ed Kowai has great wheels. The quad look, for instance, at the teardrop, very dominant. Next, we got Momo Benitez, who is a very short and stocky bodybuilder from the 90s, who unfortunately had his career cut off by an early death. But he had very thickly developed legs and very conditioned quads and huge for his overall size. All three heads very developed. I would say he's got an amazing X-frame thanks to the quad sweeps. He looks really good in the quads. So rest in peace. This is a very forgotten bodybuilder from the 2000s era. His name is Desmond Miller. He has a short career, that's probably why. And he had quads that look humongous in some pictures, like on the left. On the right, not so much, but still it's a very good set. He's got the proportionate development of all three parts of the quad, and he's got a bit of feathering, and his quads even look pretty pleasing, so I gotta give it up for Desmond Miller. But the same goes for the insanely ripped 90s bodybuilder Andreas Mozar. It should be Andreas Münzer, from what I can tell. With my limited knowledge of German, it should be Münzer. Interesting. Anyway, Andreas was never really famous for the quads, but they were definitely the highlight of his physique. Nevertheless, they were ripped to the bone, just like the rest of him, and also a pretty good shape in my opinion. And I like the teardrops especially. Here is Sean Ray, the 90s era. This is a good set of quads as well. Sean has got that Ed Kowai shape in his wheels, so he's got like the rigid edges in the sweeps, but I think objectively The quads look great, and the teardrop also looking great. So, Sean Ray. Here is Lionel Bayaki from the 2010s. He hasn't competed since 2018, I think. Anyway, Lionel has really feather quads, always, because he's got the genetics for that. He's got the genes to show striations in the quads, and it looks glorious. It really does. Again, it's not like his thighs measure 32 inches, but the cuts and feathers make up for it big time. I like his quads, they look so perfect and so recognizable. But this is the Frankenstein, Paul Dolat, and I believe he has great big quads. The teardrop and sweep are amazing. Paul, in my opinion, is underrated in the wheel department. He has really good quads. And look at how the sweeps are long and full. It's great stuff. Next is a nowadays 212 competitor, Gion Pearson. I believe they call him the prodigy. And he was a very elegant physique with great genetics and muscle bellies. And the same can be said about Gion's quads. They have such nice lines and a great look. They are very separated with great sweeps, but also an incredible middle head and the teardrop not lagging behind. This is what I'm talking about when I say supremely balanced quads. This is Hassan Mustafa, though. He's a current competitor with jumbo-sized quadriceps. He comes in like a tank. His sweeps especially are so big and meaty and impressive, even though Hassan is not as conditioned and cut. And this is an example of what I really call freaky quads. Look like how they draw your eye, and it's a real deal when Hassan comes in condition. If that happens, his quads are gonna be very, very good. They're gonna look amazing. And they look amazing already. Here we have a bit of a step back. It might seem like in the one-time 2018 Mr. Oshawn Flexitron rode, and because the quads are not nearly as freaky as big. But Sean is Mr. Consistency in his body part. He has proved himself a lot more than Hassan, and people tend to like his quads, I found. And no wonder. Like, they're not small. They're super detailed with round, pleasing to the eye other hats or quad sweeps. I personally don't like the shape of Flexitron quads that much, but I cannot deny they are pretty good and have nice flow indeed. This is William the Conqueror Bonac, and he is here to showcase his great quad development. He is of course currently competing in shows, and he has proved he's got an amazing lower body, which includes the quads. They have a lot of size and thickness, as well as a great balance of all heads. All three look world class in my opinion. And here's 90s talent Mike Francois. Unfortunately, he had some problems, I believe, which caused him to have to end his career. That's sad, but we're here to celebrate how impressive these quads are. The teardrops, the sweeps look awesome. It's just cut and separated muscle, and Mike Francois definitely belongs on the list. This is Chris Cormier. He comes from the same decade, the 90s, and he looks to have insane thickness on his quads, if you know what I mean. Chris looks like all three heads are so thickly developed, but so well separated too. It looks very awe-inspiring. Very long quadriceps, if I can call it that. Very great looking and pleasing quads on Chris Cormier. Can't praise them enough. In insane, amazing shape. And here is a guy actually from the 1980s, and his name is Jeff King. He was famous for his neck, nicknamed Neckzilla, but his quads also deserve to be mentioned. Amazing thick development, greatly separated and detailed, perfect balance of all three heads. Amazing teardrops, great medial head, and man, the sweeps, complete size. Aesthetic, and for sure it's a standout body part if we ignore the neck, that is. And here is actually a guy from today's bodybuilding stages, We find the Godzilla, Nicolas Julio. He's from the 212 division, but that of course doesn't mean he's any slouch. His lower body is out of the charts. It's very well developed. He could even place much higher if he had better shape in his squats. Because I think this shape is kind of unpleasant, to be honest. The quads are too short, if you ask me at least. But the powerful size and development is just inevitable. The media head, what even is that? It's so meaty and large. I don't even understand it. And the teardrops and outer hats are great as well. The adductors too. That's kind of personal preference, I would say, if you like big adductor muscles or not. Not that big a deal. Another 212 competitor, his name is Austin Carr. Not very well known, but he possesses a very well-rounded and huge but eye-pleasing set of quads. Look at the sheer size of each individual head. All three supremely developed. This is what I call good upper wheels. Yeah, this is what they should look like. The muscle bellies and shape too very nice. I have to applaud this guy, just like the other entries. They're all amazing. We got today's open class, pro Ian Ballier. Ian's quads are very grainy and muscular, as you can see, perhaps lacking a bit in form of muscle separation, but making up for it with these rippling veins. Now, I don't like the shape of his quads, I'm gonna be completely honest with you here, but I can appreciate the graininess and the huge quad sweeps, so definitely it's impressing me. Here's a competitor from the 2010s. I hope he's gonna compete more, but it doesn't look like it, which is unfortunate. His name is Justin Compton, and let me tell you, I was very surprised on how well he stacked up against others when comparing their quads. He's got sweeping quads, they look ginormous compared to the rest of his body, and the teardrops are good as well. And he's got decent shape in my opinion, and even some vascularity. It looks amazing, like 2 tree trunks. But this is another current sensation, you could say, a huge talent by the name of Hunter Brada, whose quads are in my reckoning one of the most impressive of the 2020s. Beautifully shaped, cut from hip to knee, and fully developed. Hunter's got the sweeps, which give him a nice X-frame, but the middle and inner head look great too, you can't argue that. The overall effect is great, and I like Hunter's quads quite a lot, personally, to be honest. And I like this guy's quad makeup too. This is a 212 division competitor Noel Adami. He also competes these days, and his quads just look glorious. Look how great and big those sweeps are. They're really giving Noel the necessary freak factor. Really catches the eye because it looks pretty retarded. So full and round. And also the middle head of the quadriceps looks to be showing a huge lot of detail, and it just looks so great. What more do you even want? Well, maybe this guy, believe it or not, this is Phil Heath. This is a 7-time Mr. Olympia from the 2010s. He is not famous for his lower body. It's like it's always been really good, but nobody really talks about it because his upper body is so impressive, so the lower body takes a back seat. It has to be said about his quads, they're pretty adductor heavy, which I don't prefer to pure development of the 3 heads. But it's not like Phil doesn't have good development of the 3 heads. The teardrops are very good, and the thickness of Phil's legs are made not only by the adductors, but also of course by the sweeping outer heads. So props to Phil. I think he's actually a bit underrated in the quads. This is another Mr. Olympia. He comes from the 2000s. The cuts, Jay Cutler. He's got very impressive quads, and it's mainly by the virtue of the great condition and detail and feathering that he squeezed onto this list. And although his quads look so aesthetic and feathered and nice, they are flawed. For one, the left quad was a bit bigger than the right one, and also his quads compared to his upper body honestly look kind of small rather than big. Don't get me wrong, they're not undersized, but they lack a bit of size in comparison with the other entries on this list. That's why I don't have Jay Hart on the list. I just think his wheels would need more mass to go along with all the very amazing details. But nevertheless, great quads. Here we have a current guy, Akeem Williams, known for his quads, especially from the side, but the front poses are also very good for him. The shape is quite odd of his quads, to be fair, but the mass, the full development of the heads, and the detail definitely make up for this flaw. Such good adductors too, which gives a lot of thickness. It's like two huge tree trunks once again, and I think Akeem's quads are a definite highlight of his physique. This is Mohamed Shaiban, and I had to include this current talented bodybuilder, even though he is not exactly a household name. The quads lack a bit of separation, and I notice that, of course, and I think you might not appreciate the shape of the quads, but you can't ignore the unbelievable graininess and huge size. Look at the sweeps, how much area they occupy, and the teardrops also. It's glorious, man, I have to say. For sure, the quads are the feature you notice first when you look at Mo Shaiban, so props to this amazing gentleman. But there was also an amazing set of quads from the late 80s, Phil Hill, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not familiar with this person, which is possible, what are you doing? This guy is awesome. And he had great quad development as well as great genetic potential in this region. Look at the unbelievable sweeping quads of Phil Hill and the thick meat on the teardrop. It's very impressive, also the veins and crazy separation. Now look at this highly impressive set on actually a current classic physique competitor, if you can believe that. It's Chen Kang, and his quads are beyond the level of most open class bodybuilders in my opinion. Perfect shape, the teardrop is so thick and the sweep is just to be admired by everyone. The size, the X-frame, the detail, all warrants Chen Kang a spot on my list. To my knowledge, this is the most impressive set of thighs in classic physique by far. This is Dennis Wolf, competed in the 20s and 2010s, and he had quite a weird shape to the quads. I mean, if you saw these, you could probably immediately tell it's Dennis, the big bad. It's like he's got two middle hats instead of one for some reason. I don't really get it, but it's impressing me anyway. But the highlight isn't the middle hat, it's not even the big adductors, it's definitely the sweep, which is just the definition of an X-frame, really. The sweeps are so long and they're jumbo-sized compared to the rest of the body of Dennis, so his quadriceps is definitely great. This is Hadi Chupin. He is now in the open class. Previously he was 212. The Persian Wolf has got one of the most dominant quads. You can see the definition, separation, even a bit of feathering. The quad sweeps are retarded, massive size on these things, huge wow factor and huge X-frame. Hadi Chupin is truly very well developed in the thighs, and I'm thankful we can appreciate that all. I mean, thank you to everyone on this list. Anyway, we got Vito Abospor, sorry if I messed up his name, either way. He was competing shortly throughout the 2010s and he died very sadly, so may he rest in peace. He had amazing wheels, he is forgotten for some reason though. The quads are a bit asymmetrical, that's a valid criticism. The left looks to be a bit more defined, but that's mainly the way Vito is standing in my opinion, so we shouldn't ding him too much for that. The combination of freakish size and perfect shape and definition is just unbeatable. All the three hats are virtually the same size and they are all huge and so detailed, so when you guys discuss the best quads of all time, don't miss out on Vito Abospor, because he's the man truly. But this is the Predator, Kyle Green, demanding attention with his nice quads. The size of them is just amazing, and Kai also shows feathering. Not particularly when he's not flexing the quads, but you can still see the detail and separation in these photos. I think mainly the teardrops, but also the impressive outer hats really make Kai's quads iconic and stand out in these poses like the lat spread. So don't count out Kai Green's quads ever. But at least in my opinion, the Pac-Man, coming from the 2010s for the most part, Ben Pakulski looks even a bit better possibly with these crazy middle hats and the sweeps. What can I say about the sweeps? It's literally unbelievable. Crazy size, as you can see yourself. Like, if you're not impressed with this, I don't know what you would be impressed with. Because the heads are so perfectly shaped and deeply separated. Such a mad eye catcher, the lower body overpowers the Ben's upper body. And if that's partly due to the quads, as well as the calves. So shout out for sure. Here's the mutant, Nick Walker. He is currently emerging on the scene of bodybuilding. His quads are crazy shredded and grainy and vascular with great size and insanely separated muscle too. Quite a bit of a standout on the mutant physique. Very impressive. Some people might think I am overhyping this, but in my opinion the quad sweeps are just so impressive. Just how developed they are. But it has to be said that Nick has a flaw though. It's a pretty well known flaw at this point. I think his right quad is way smaller and the sweep is much shorter on the right side than on the left quadriceps. Kind of ruins the flow of the physique, but man, the graininess can't be denied and Nick deserves a spot. Massive. And I have Sunit Jadhav, who was a competitor in the 2010s, and apart from having perfect tan, he also had virtually perfect quads. The shape of them is one of the best I've ever seen, and the separation, feathering, the top to bottom development, he's got it all. He looks so aesthetic and nice. The sweeps and inner hats, especially. If you wanted to show people what a good set of quads looks like, you could definitely grab a photo of Sunit. Not too freaky, but still stand out. And surprise, surprise, this is, of course, Tom Platz, and he's the quad father, so you might be wondering why he doesn't place higher than this. To be honest, from these pictures, I can't really say the quads look that impressive, because don't get me wrong, of course, he has world-class wheels, but honestly, we can't really appreciate that much because in the 80s, I guess it wasn't expected to have separation and detail in the quads. So I know people love Tom's quads, and someone might complain that this is not even top 5 in this video, but this is my list, and from the pictures that I'm seeing, the quads are impressive because of the size and sheer development of the three heads. I'm not trying to argue that. The teardrops are insane. The sweep is there as well. And the medial head, it's unreal, it really is. So that's why he is featured in the video. But to me, the golden eagle in these poses just doesn't show nearly as much detail as the other people on this list. That's my reasoning. Maybe when he flexes his quads, they're gonna look, in my opinion, much better. What do you guys think about it? Are you seeing it as well, or do you still think Tom's the best? And why do I have this guy ahead of the most famous and most celebrated set of quads of all time? These quads you're seeing now are the same size, I would argue larger, and they're showing more cuts and definition. This is a current competitor, Vitali Golinkov, nicknamed Good Vito. He's emerging on the scene right now, just as I'm speaking, so I expect he's probably going to be getting better. It's true, and I'll always say this, he hasn't proved himself yet on a big pro stage, so he is maybe not as relevant, but mad props because he's already developed unbelievable huge size at a very young age. The sweep, it looks retarded. It looks like it's Photoshop. I hope it's not. It gives Vitali a monstrous freak factor. It defines his physique It's definitely overdeveloped. The quad shouldn't be this big, but I don't think it's to the point where it hurts Vitali, so I have him pretty high on this list. Moving on, we have Mustafa Mohammed. He had amazing quads. They're humongous, but the reason I consider him so impressive, he also has decent separation and even feathers in the teardrops and vascularity. I agree with you folks who are gonna be thinking this is not aesthetic or not a nice look or not a nice shape, but this is not what the video is about. The graininess, the teardrop, the sweep, the freak factor is just great. I call it like I see it, and I think Mustafa is really impressive. Here is overall 5th place finisher in this video today. We're only gonna look at 4 more after him. It's an absolutely out of this world quad makeup. I'm sure you all know who this is. It's King Coleman, 90s and 2000s, 8-time Mr. O. He's not displayed properly. I never liked how he stood so straight. I understand he was probably trying to maximize his height, but the stance is not flattering for the quads in my opinion. They look huge, but they definitely should look bigger. I wish Ronnie would have spread his feet a bit more, that would give more sweep. But nevertheless, the side and detail is there. The metal head is quite impressive, and there's definitely good genetics playing into this. And yes, the veins and the teardrops wrapping around the leg. Man, Ronnie's the king. And we can't miss the Godzilla Paul, 90s bodybuilder, known for crazy quads, mainly the size and the overall development of the 3 heads, because all 3 heads look just amazing. That's why he places 4th on my list. Super thickly developed quads all the way from the hip to the knees, especially down there, vascular, pure quality. He was not called the Quadzilla for nothing. And now we have a set of quads that might prove controversial, the inclusion of this person, because he is a one-hit wonder. His name is not very famous. It's Caprice Murray. I believe he's from the 2010s. Caprice is 3rd in my opinion overall, if you can believe that. He's got crazy sweep and a total development with big teardrops too. Very round quadriceps, amazing shape and muscle bellies, I would say. The quads are very detailed and also huge. In my opinion, at least. You can tell me your opinion. And you need to know about this guy, trust me, the quads are standout. They're amazing, you can't argue with me about that. In 2nd is a 2000s and 2010s bodybuilder Branch Warren. He had monstrous tree trunks and also his trademark graininess and veininess in his quads. The teardrops with these feathers look so great, as well as do his middle head and outer head. Unbelievable freak factor. Branch's lower body was always overpowering his upper body, and it's just hard to believe how someone's quads can look so grainy and large and still hard and conditioned. And 1st place for the best quads in the front poses goes to the current Mr. Olympia, Big Ramy, Mamdou El-Sbiai. Maybe that's how you say it, I don't know. He has the best quads in my opinion, but there's a caveat, and a very important one to me. I'm not talking about Ramy's quads at the 2020 Olympia or basically any show that took place after the year 2017. You can see that on the photo on the left. I feel like after the 2017 Olympia, the quads just became unreasonably short for some reason. It looked like the sweeps started halfway down the leg, and I just didn't like the shape because the sweep just jutted out way too aggressively. But look how great the quads used to look in 2013 in the picture on the right, and in 2014 in the picture in the middle. Maybe this is personal preference, but I think Ramy's quads were too glorious and freaky and huge, especially the sweep, and just so long and big for anyone to battle. The quads flow awesome in 2013 and 14. Not as big as 2018 or 2020, but in my opinion, it's much better. Thick meat, unbelievable size, and just so beautiful, as well as, in my opinion, even though you might not have ever thought about Rami squats that way, but they really have a nice shape, at least they used to have, that goes along with the great freak factor. So that's why he places this high. So guys, I really need you to let me know down in the comment section below what you think about this one, because it might be a bit unpopular. Some of the decisions like Don Platz and Jay Cutler are too low, Rami and Caprice Murray too high. I don't know, guys. To be honest, I'm not completely satisfied with this list, with how I did it, because it's kind of weird. In some cases it makes less sense than I would wish. But there's just been so many great sets of quads in bodybuilding. Trying to order this list especially was very difficult, like almost impossible to do it. So this is a very arbitrary order indeed. Hopefully I at least offered a different point of view to you and you don't disagree too much. You can look at it from different angles now. I was just showcasing people with impressive quads, that's all. So as I said, let me know your opinion. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to watch some best quads videos and also like and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your day.